Good evening, Javier Franco. Perspective from my porch. Steps for Success, life coach, founder. Today I was asked about some situations like about habits. They were asking me about different habits, different things that occur. And the question that was asked was, are bad habits, can they be broken? And how far can you go with bad habits? Um, and I had to look up some information about that. And of course, bad habits can be detrimental to your health. They can be bad for your situation in life, and we do have to change some habits. I have some habits, and we all have habits. Um, I have somebody that their habit was drinking a lot of Dr. Peppers. I remember looking in her trunk, and she had a case of Dr. Peppers. And I thought, well, there go. And she said, no, I drink all of that in one day. And it was like, you drink 24 bottles of cans of Dr. Pepper. It was Diet Dr. Pepper. And she said, yeah, I do that. And I was like, well, that's not a good habit to have. She said, well, it's hard to break. And that was a habit that she had. I mean, it was more of an addiction, actually. And sometimes you get really close to habits and addictions being almost the same thing. As I was reading some information about habits and about bad habits mostly, one of the things that it tells you to do is to identify the triggers. What what causes or what happens when you have that habit? Let's say it's making, it's just a bad habit of making bad decisions, or drinking, smoking. Like I said, there's a variation right there. There's a really close thing of a bad habit and addiction. As I was reading it, there's a really close situation there. I'm sorry, I have to look down at my notes here. Um, it says figure out what cues trigger the habit, such as emotions, time, or people. Um, and sometimes it's the same time every day, every day, every day. The habit. Uh, I have a friend that spits all the time, and I say, "Do you have that much saliva?" He said, "No, it's just a bad habit." And they spit, and so and he sometimes you see people, and it just becomes a habit. It's almost like a nervous tick. Um, the second thing that it says about habits is identify the habit, replace that habit. What is stopping you, or what is something that makes you go back to the same habits over and over and over? What is it? And the question is, what do you replace it with? Um, Somebody that I know is chewing gum, and I asked them, "So, why are you chewing some gum?" He said, "Well, because I'm trying to break the habit of smoking." And so what they do is they just chew gum all the time. Um, Another person, no, it puts a cert, or some kind of mint in their mouth, and they just eat it and they just suck on it for a while, peppermints or something, and that replaces the bad habit that they have of smoking. And like I said, there's always a really tight line between habits and addictions. um, be consistent. Prioritize the consistency. um, if you do it one time, you do it the second time. One of the things that people are taught who are in addiction or trying to break a habit is that it becomes a lifestyle. Now, the habit needs to be replaced with something positive, something that's not going to hurt you, something that's not going to be detrimental to your health, something that's going to help you become a better person. The thing I can think about is when people start going to church, they're told, start reading the Bible. Well, if you're not used to reading the Bible, then it's going to be hard for you. But after a while, you start reading the Bible at the same time, or start reading a book at the same time, or start doing things at the same time every single day, after a while, it becomes a life. expectancy. It becomes part of your life. It becomes part of your routine, and that's what that means. Make some small changes. We go back to the goal setting. Don't make a big, humongous goal of I'm going to stop cold turkey, and that sometimes works for people, but a lot of times they go back to the original problem that they had, and they go back in full force, and it becomes a bigger issue. The habit becomes a bigger issue in their lives. Once again, set goals. This week, I'm not going to go to a certain place. This next week, we're not going to go to that certain point. And we're going to, I told somebody one time, if you can, if you like, I can't remember what their habit was. It was a habit, but it was like break it down in weeks, uh, and then add another week. Break it in 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and then 4 weeks, and just stop doing the same thing over and over. If it's, and some people say, well, what is a bad habit? Well, if it's affecting your life in a bad way, then that's a habit. That's a bad habit. If it's affecting others around you, that's a bad habit. Um, Practice positive self-talk. I can do this. I don't need to do this. I do positive self-talk a lot. I tell people about positive self-talk. A lot of people don't like that, and they don't believe that. And it's the same thing. Somebody's gonna be out there. Well, you gotta pray. Well, once again, we go back to the habit of praying, and not everybody's gonna have the same habit of praying, especially new believers or especially in new religions. Or you have to have that, establish a habit. And some people say, well, it's easy. Well, if you were raised or you've been in a religious background for a long time, yes, it's easy because you've probably established that. Establishing the habit of praying, establishing the habit of reading, establish the habit of not going certain locations, establishing the habit of taking, and even driving. When you're driving, some people have the habit of going one way and that's it. And then all of a sudden, that one way that they're going has construction, and they just is like, well, wait, and they get mad because the habit of driving is almost like their car can drive that same route all the time, but when that's broken, they don't know how to react. When you start breaking bad habits, a lot of times you're not going to know how to react. So you're going to get um, antsy, you're going to get nervous, and you'll go right back to the same bad habit. Um, Create a supportive environment. Look for somebody who can help you and encourage you to break that habit. Look for somebody who can help you become a stronger person, and stay away from people who are negative. Stay away from people who, and that's another bad habit. Some people, uh, they are negative about everything, and that's a bad habit. And talking bad about things, that's a bad habit. Cursing is a habit, and some people say, well, that's just my language. Okay, if that's your language and you're fine with it, then keep going. I mean, that's up to you. um, there's people who have the habit of I have a friend that does this all the time. All the time they do that. It's just a nervous tick. It's just something that they break. And he tells me sometimes, I want to break this habit. I don't know why I do it, but, and I was like, well, uh, put your mind onto something else. Sometimes kids would have a little twister or a little uh, coin or something that they would use, and they would, instead of doing this, they would play with this little twister. Eventually, it would graduate to something else. Um, the habit of waking up and doing the same thing over. Once again, there's good habits and bad habits. There's good things and bad things. And like I was telling the person that talked to me today, it was like, well, I have to do it. Every Saturday night I've got to go do the same thing. I've got to. It's just part of my life. And it's like, so is it helpful for you or no? He said, no, because then I feel guilty. Well, guess what? If you're feeling guilty about it, then that's not a that's not a good habit. Then you have to change that habit. Can you break a habit? Yes, you can. but you have to replace that bad habit with a good habit, and replace that group of people, or replace whatever negativity is there. Replace it. I'm sorry. Replace it with something positive. I'm going to talk a little bit more about habits. I'm going to identify your habits later on this week. So y'all just look and see what you have going that's bad and what you want to break. I'll see y'all later this week. We'll talk about that a little bit more. Javier Franco, Perspective on My Porch, Steps for Success. Go out and do your best.